honored and humbled to be reading with such wonderful poets, except for Katie. Because I read with her all the time, and she always shows me up. But again, I mean, YellowJacket Press is one of the best things that Tampa has to offer. This is an event. I mean, clearly, look at this. Look at all you guys here. I mean, this is what poetry is supposed to be. It's about this gathering, and it's about this communication. It's this love for words. Yeah. So I'm really happy to be here, and so I'm going to start off. My poems have been shorter lately, and something weird happened, which I never thought would happen, which was I wrote a Florida poem.
All over now.
I know.
That's right.
You got sand in your shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. I got sand in my shoes. But I find Florida to be one of the oddest and coolest places I've ever been. I was just walking the other day, and every single step I took, these little geckos scurried away. Yeah. There's poetry in that. There's poetry everywhere with the sandhill cranes and the medians of highways. I mean, it just blows my mind. So this is a love poem. Florida, a love poem. In the summer, heat is a tight embrace that suffocates. It enters through the pores of the feet, ablaze despite afternoon rain and flood that whisks away gaiters and carries moccasins into the hollows of cypresses. Love, forgive me, I still yearn. I scratch lines into the hickory's bark. The days you have scorched my heart. I smell your musk, feel your invisible fingers across my back and neck and thighs like a devouring vine. This is loneliness, I'm sure. Love, a hurricane is inevitable. It is east of us, ravaging some tropical island. It has your name. I'm willing it towards me, arms open. I think, like most kids, I was never a very political person. I think when I was young, I chose presidents by their names. So, like, Bush was, like, awesome. For a teenage boy, you know, like... But now it means a lot, and this is an election year, and I wanted to write a poem that was political, but not political, and I wanted to write a poem that would get, my students, the youth, to really get, to go out and vote. And so here's my political poem that's not political. Because the world is cluttered, like the back of my car, a graveyard of water bottles and wet socks, like my tornadoed thoughts, debris whirling and whirling, splinters and nails and ruined homes. We need that moment Buddha speaks of, the ability to see the miracle of a single flower, its blossom like hands praying beyond sky, praying for stars to plummet into the bloom. Let that light shine in shadowed places. Let it stir us from our silent slumber. Remember, the heart is biology, muscle and veins and arteries. It will bleed if we let it. I am mostly inspired by my students. I'm one of those weird teachers who hate the summer because I do not write. I kind of watch TV and become a sloth and play video games and do anything but write. I write more during the school year because I meet with my students, I'm talking to them about creative writing, they're so motivating, they're so energetic, and so much of my work, especially my poetry, comes from the school year. One of the poems I'm going to read, there was a time where I thought poetry had left me, and I hadn't written a poem in, I would say, 2 or 3 years, and Katie had mentioned, she gave me a book by Richard Hugo, Letters. Yeah. And I just fell in love again, because what that book reminded me of, that poetry is a communication. It is an address. It is a letter to someone. And so I started writing And my next book will be these letters, and most of my letters are actually to my formal students. So this one is called Letter to Mazio, who lost his mojo, which was all in his curls. Dear Nick, when KC told me you cut your fro, I let an expletive fly out the window and into Tampa's rush hour traffic, where it slammed against a school bus full of honor students. He told me you look mean, which I found hard to believe because I still imagine that boy in the back of class, hair bouncing like a basketball, talking poetry and jazz without thought for the future, because the future was filled with music notes and stanza breaks and jammed lines and crescendos of hope and super riffs of iambic pentameter. Nick, you feel the world by sound and hold it in your afro. And now I wonder where the music goes to, and I wonder whether you've passed that point in your life, and now hair is just hair and nothing more. But hair is everything, isn't it? A prince climbed hair to get to the princess. Siddhartha cut hair to become Buddha. I used to imagine a world existing in the thickness of your curls, a nest of songbirds tweeting wisdom in your ears. What do you do now that there is no strand to pull? Do you feel for it like a phantom limb? I keep messing with my own hair, smoothing it back relentlessly, and Katie fears I'm losing more with each swipe. Maybe it's not important. Maybe I shouldn't cry about it. But I keep remembering that afternoon in Chicago at that art museum, and a black boy commented on your white boy fro, and you laughed and walked down Michigan Avenue, and your hair was heavy and parted, and from a distance, it resembled a heart that beat with your every step. Well, I read this poem because it's an ekphrastic poem. It's about a piece of art. And one of the things that I read in the last couple of years was this book by J. Berger, Ways of Seeing. And he wrote about Renaissance artists drawing women, and they were always men. And he was saying that, all women in these paintings were always drawn in the gaze of a man. And that really kind of stuck with me. So this is a poem called Into the Keeping of Men. There walked a woman today at the grocery store who turned the heads of the meat men behind refrigerated steaks. How they devoured her elegant stride. How her presence was body without mind. They will remember her only briefly as the one with long legs, the one with gracious hips, and she will be cataloged away with infinite others, a forever list of parts. Gauguin, when you painted Venus reclined, her hands seductively positioned above her groin, what dreams did you give her? Did you fill her head with the scent of olives and Tuscan suns? Does painter and subject occupy the same breath? My wife sits alone in her room, the night air laden with grief, a guitar on her lap. How do I paint her voice in the sound of plucked chords? How do I capture the beating within her chest, the sad song singing in her heart? I am learning to see. First, I close my eyes. This will be my last poem, and before I introduce it, I just want to thank Gianna again for putting this event on and inviting me to read. It's such a special time. I was talking to my creative nonfiction class the other day about memory, and I was saying how one of the things that for a nonfiction writer, especially a memoir writer, what we do is very unnatural, right? We're trying to make things that come to us in fragments and enforce a chronological order to it, right? Memories never follow a kind of logic. You're sitting in a car, you hear a song, and suddenly something pops up, right? You're walking on campus, you smell something, and you remember something, right? So I was telling my students, I want you guys to think about this in your writing and what we do with it, how we shape it. So this is a poem about how I got stung by a bee on my cheek. And suddenly I thought of a memory that has been haunting me. The poem is called Kiss. First, I felt the sting, a pinprick burn on my cheek, and then it spread down my chin, neck, chest, finally toes which curled hard in needle-tipped shoes. And then I caught it in my hand and brought it to my ears and listened to it buzz and bump against the walls of my palm. And then I let it go, its flight jagged and drunk, watched it flit away into the shadowed jungle of irises. And then I remembered my lips that night, nervously chapped, and hers deliciously curved peppers, but not her name. And then I kissed her, or she kissed me, or we kissed each other. And then she ran away, heat in her absence, and then that familiar burn, that sting that lingered throughout the day, my life. And then there were others, more lips, more lost names, but none alike, each containing its own beautiful, its own disquieting hurt. And then I wondered about first and last kisses, wondered about a sleep so deep that living becomes a dream of endless flowers, a forever day of and then, and then, and then. Thank you.